Welcome to the SmartList Builder demo. My name is Nicole Albertson, and I'd like to show you some of the great things that SmartList Builder can do and how it can help you get the data you need from Microsoft Dynamics GP. To start out, let me explain what SmartList Builder is. SmartList Builder consists of 4 different modules. The first is SmartList Builder, which allows you to create new SmartLists, as well as modify the default ones that come with SmartList. Excel Report Builder will allow you to create new refreshable Excel reports to get the data you need directly in Excel without having to export it from SmartList first. Navigation List Builder allows you to create new navigation lists within Microsoft Dynamics GP and the navigation panes. Drill Down Builder helps create drill downs from your Excel report back to a GP window. These drill downs can also be used with other tools such as SQL Reporting Services reports. With the different Builder module options, we can add data from many different locations. The main one is going to be the Microsoft Dynamics GP tables. That's going to consist of any table in Microsoft Dynamics GP coming from the core modules such as General Ledger, Payables, Sales Order Processing, Payroll, and all of the other ones included there. You can also bring in any of the add-on products that are available with Microsoft Dynamics GP, such as project accounting, manufacturing, field service, and so on. As well as the ones that are coming with GP, we can pull in any third-party modules as well. So if you have a product from another application provider, we can pull in those tables as long as that product integrates with Microsoft Dynamics GP and allows us to do so. If the tables you want are in the GP tables, we have other options. The next one is going to be a SmartList table type, and that is only going to be available in SmartList Builder. It will not show up in Excel Report Builder or Navigation List Builder, but it is going to allow us to pull in the default SmartLists so that we have that starting point. So if you have a list where you just need to add a couple extra things, we can pull in that default SmartList and add what you need to it or make the changes you'd like. That way you don't have to know what the different tables that were on that default one and build it out using the GP table type. We have it already pre-built for you. The SQL Server table option is going to allow you to pull in any table or view from any database on the SQL Server where your Microsoft Dynamics GP databases reside. So if you have another application such as CRM, or you have some custom tables or views that you've created and you want to pull those into your reports, we can pull those directly into any of the builders, and then you can include those in your setup. Now again, it does have to be on the same SQL Server as your Microsoft Dynamics GP databases. It cannot be a linked server or any other server outside of that. The SQL script option allows you to write select statements right within the tool to pull in data from other databases or custom views, tables, information like that. It only allows for select statements, and you can write those select statements against any table or view in any of the databases that reside on the same SQL Server as your Microsoft Dynamics GP databases. With the SQL Server table and SQL script options, you do have to keep in mind that if you are using other applications' databases or your custom tables and views, that your users would need access to those tables and views that you're pulling in. The data connection option is going to be available in SmartList Builder and Excel Report Builder. It is designed to pull in the data connection setup that comes with the default Excel reports that Microsoft has released. There is one for each of the default Excel reports, and it will pull in the data that those reports are using so that you have a setup that looks very similar to the default Excel reports. The Extender Resource option will only be available if you are using Extender from E1 to create new windows and forms in your environment. If you are using Extender, it will allow you to add the data from the windows and forms that you create in Extender and pull that data into your setups there. So let's take a look at what the different Builder modules can do for us. If we think about SmartList, the Excel reports, and navigation lists, there is always something more that we would like to see in those lists. A field or two that we cannot get into an existing report, or something that is completely missing. When I thought about it, I really wanted a budget versus actual report in SmartList. There isn't anything I can do to get this in the default SmartList, so I had to build one using SmartList Builder. In SmartList, you see this new list that isn't there by default. This came from SmartList Builder. Once it is added to SmartList, it looks and acts the same way as any other SmartList would. I can use the search criteria. I can create favorites. And all the other features that are available in SmartList will be available on this list. Now let's look at it in SmartList Builder. I'm going to click Modify here to get to SmartList Builder. And as you can see here in our setup, I have a few different GP tables added to get the information I needed. The Budget Summary Master, the Budget Master, and Account Master are all GP tables I've added to get the fields that I wanted on my list. You can also see that I have a SQL script added to get the data I need. I could have done this in other fashions, but I wanted to show you that SQL scripting and the GP tables and all those other table types can be linked together to get the data you want. You don't have to stick to one table type or another. Some of the features that are going to be available to us in SmartList Builder include calculations, where I can create different calculated fields to capture the data I need. For example, in this one, I'm just taking the budget amount minus the actual amount to get a variance in my budget. You can also create go-tos, those drillbacks from your SmartList back to a GP window. And we actually have a lot of other options built into SmartList Builder other than just going to GP windows. We can go between different SmartLists. So I can go from a account list to the budget to see the budget for that actual account. I can open a website. Maybe I'm tracking UPS tracking numbers. I can pass those back to the website and get the tracking information very quickly. And as you can see, there are other options there that we can use. We also have taken every one of the go-tos that are on the default SmartLists and built them in so that you don't have to know how those are set up. We have them built in for you, and you just need to select which one you want to use and tell us where the data is that go-to is using. We also have options for doing summary SmartLists where I can summarize this. Maybe I only want to see one record per account per year. I want to know what the total budget for the year for that account is, not what it is for every period and how I'm doing. We can summarize it up by that using the Summary SmartList option. As you can see on the right-hand side of this window, I actually have the multi-company SmartList turned on, so we are getting data from multiple companies in this one list. Now we only have it set to 1,000, which is the default for SmartList, so if we increase that, we would see the data coming from multiple companies, and we can create a calculation, and we can call it company, where we can pull in the company ID or company name so that on our list we can tell which company the data is coming from. So just to show you how easy it can be, I'd like to create a new SmartList that is just going to pull in all the financial batches in GP and show me how many transactions are in the batch, its total, and maybe a status or something like that for that batch. To do this, we're going to click New, and it'll open SmartList Builder for us and allow us to create a new list. We're going to call this Financial Batches, so we'll just give it an ID of that and give it the name of Financial Batches. Now we get to choose which folder in SmartList I want this to go into, so I'm going to put it in the Financial Series folder there. And now we get to choose what data we want to actually have in our report. You may or may not know what table holds the actual batches in GP. If you're not familiar with that, we have a great way built into SmartList Builder to find that out. If you open the window in GP where you know the data is that you want, we can see what tables that window is using. So this is kind of the data I want, is what's on this batch entry window, the batch ID, the origin, the total of that batch, how many journal entries are in it, and so forth. So within any window, when you have SmartList Builder, you can go to Tools and select Table Finder, and it will open a Table Finder window and populate in that window that you have accessed it from. So in our case, the batch entry window. You can see the list of tables that this window uses. And now that's a little bit too much for me still. I'm not sure which one of these specific tables holds a field like the origin. So we can take this a step farther, and in the field box, we can select which field we're looking for. So I'll select origin, and it's going to tell me that that's in the posting definitions master. Over on the right hand side, you can see a little bit more about that table, such as what it's called in SQL, what the record count is, what series it's going to be in if we were looking for the table ourselves, and on the bottom half of that right side, you'll see that we have the fields that are in that, and then we can build a SQL script there based on those fields. So if I start on checking some of the fields, you can see it's building a SQL script based on the fields that I have selected. We also have a preview button right next to the SQL script box, where I can click that and it will preview the first 100 records of the data that's in that table. That way I can see if this is truly the data I'm looking for or if I have the wrong table. Once we know we have the right table and we can go through selecting different fields to make sure we have that table, there may be a lot of scenarios where you have multiple tables. So take note of those tables, and then that's what we're going to use in our setup. In this scenario, it is just one table. So we've found our table. We could click the Create Smart List, Create Excel Report, or Create Navigation List button at the bottom, and it would ask us what we want to call our new list and add this table to the list. We already have ours started, so we're going to go back to SmartList Builder, and we'll add that table manually. So I'm going to click the Add button, and it's a Microsoft Dynamics GP table, so I will select that. And now you can see that it's telling me what product series, so I need to select that. If I look at the products, I do have all the different products that I have installed listed there, so I can use tables from any of those. Well, we know it's GP, so we're going to go back to that. And now that table finder told us it was in the company series, so I'm going to select company and find that posting definitions master table. So we'll select that, and we'll leave the key fields alone and select save. And now it has added that posting definitions master table to our setup. The next thing we need to do is tell it what fields do I want to have involved. We have a display section, and that's all going to be marked by default. That means it's going to be available when I go to the columns button in SmartList and choose to add. If I unmark something there, it will not be available to add at any point in that list. The default column is what I want to have on my list by default. I can order these by the display name so that they're alphabetical and pick the ones that I want. So we're going to do the comment, the number, the total. We'll go down and get our origin and our number of transactions, and we'll call that good. I'm going to save this, and because I had SmartList open, it automatically refreshes that list right into SmartList for us, so we have a new list called Financial Batches. Now I am logged in as SA, so I do have security to do all of this. A standard user may or may not have security to automatically update SmartList and have it display like that. So now we have our list, and we can see that it is giving us the columns we selected, but it doesn't look like financial batches alone. I mean, I see a GL batch here, that type of thing, so there are financial batches in this list, but I also see sales batches, I see payroll batches, payables, so it looks like that table holds all the batches in GP, or a lot of them, but I just want financial batches. Now I can do a restriction in SmartList where I can say I want it where the series is equal to financial, and I will have that list. But from here, to keep that, I would have to save it as a favorite and my default financial batch list would still pull all the records. That's not really what I want. So we're going to do that restriction in SmartList Builder instead so that it restricts the data before it ever comes to SmartList. The other things I can notice from this list is that I would like it called batch ID and maybe journal entries for these columns because that's what my window is calling it. And on the origin field, I don't know what an origin of 1 and 2 means. The window gives me general entry, clearing entry, and budget transaction. I'd like to have that as my origins. So we can do some of that in SmartList Builder. I'll click Modify to get us back to that setup. And I'm going to sort this by the default status to put our columns on the top that we have marked. And now to simply rename those columns, I can just type over the display name. So you can see as easy as that, I've changed the display name. All of these fields have a field type. Some are going to be string fields. A string field allows us to do some different string formatting. If we look at our total, it's going to be a currency, so we can do some currency formatting. How many decimal places do you want? That type of thing. One of the great options we have in here is negative values. If you want to, in sales order processing, make your return show up as a negative, we can simply do that based on the SOP type. Other fields here, like our origin, which was showing a 1, 2, 3 type of value in our list, we can set those. That is a drop-down list in GP, and it's one of the few lists in GP that isn't predefined for us to pull in. So we can type in what that list is. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And now if I save this, some of that formatting should come across. So you can see our origins. We have a bad transaction in our system, it looks like, so we didn't define what 0 means, so I'm still getting that one. But our columns are renamed. The one thing we didn't do is our restriction, so let's go back and do that. We'll go to restrictions and select to add one. And we'll select our series field that we want to restrict by. So we'll say is equal to financial, just like we did when we did the search in SmartList, but now this will save for the list in general. It will not display as a default list. So we're going to enter that restriction. As you can see, in SmartList Builder and Navigation List Builder, you're going to be able to restrict those restrictions based on all users, selected users, or selected user classes. This means I can have one list pull different data depending on who's logged into the system. So if you have a bunch of payroll managers, maybe you want it to only pull the employees in their department. We can have restrictions in here based on the department, assigning it to a specific manager, and we can assign that filter to a specific user in GP. So when Joe logs in, Joe only sees the payroll information for his department. When Amy logs in, she only sees the information for her department. So we can do that by applying restrictions to specific users. And that way you don't have to have a different report for Joe and a different one for Amy. It's all one report. We just have different restrictions in it. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And now you can see that we do have that restricted data. We're on our default one. It's not a favorite we've created or anything like that. And we're getting our columns, our origin, all of that looks great. With this though, the one other thing I might want is a status of that batch. So let's go back and modify it and see if we can find another field. Now that we have what we want, let's see what fields we have. So I have a batch status field here. That sounds great. The other thing I want to know is if it's marked or is it stuck in posting, which I think the batch status will show me the stuck in posting, but it's not going to show me the marked. I know that there's a different mark to post field down here. Or what if it's a reoccurring batch? There's some different fields in here that do the reoccurring information. Tracking when it was last posted, is it reoccurring, how many postings have we done, that type of thing. Well, I can put all of these fields on my list, but I really would like to have one field that just kind of goes through all these things in the order I choose and checks them. And if I meet any of that criteria, it just tells me all in this one status field. So we can create a calculated field for that. And we'll call it status. It'll be a string is what I want to return. And now there are a bunch of different functions built in to the different builder tools where we have our basic add, subtract, multiply, divide type functions. We can also do different date functions where if you want to find the difference between two dates, you want to get today's date and find the difference to the due date, that type of thing. Mathematical functions if you want to round some values, find the absolute value, anything like that. String functions if we want to trim off trailing spaces, we want to make it all uppercase, anything like that to string fields. And we also have a couple of system functions. Casting, we can take one data type into another. If you're storing dollar amounts in a user-defined field, those are a lot of times strings, we can cast it to an integer so that you can actually do a calculation on that currency value. Or case statements, which is what we're going to use, is an if-then scenario, so we can go through checking different scenarios, and if anything's true, then it'll do what we tell it to do. I have one filled out here that I want to do, and it's a case statement, an if-then. So I'm going to look at the mark to post field, and if that's true, it's marked, then I'm going to display marked. If it's not, it's unmarked, then I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to look at the different batch statuses here. If I meet any of those, I'm going to display the text that is with that one. So if I meet a 7, it's going to tell me posting was interrupted. Okay, if none of those are true, so maybe it has a status of 0, which just means it's available, I'm going to look at the number of journal entries. If there are no journal entries in it, then tell me there's no transactions. If there are transactions in it, we're going to keep going, and we'll start looking at that recurring batch scenario where we look at the batch frequency, the number of postings, so that we can see if it's been posted the max number of times or if we still have available postings there. If I don't meet any of that criteria, I'm just going to say it's available. So I'm going to copy and paste this into our calculated field, and I can validate it to make sure if I had typed it in that I typed everything right, and I can save that. So that's a little bit more complex of a calculated field than we saw on our budget versus actual report that was just a subtraction. This was a little bit more in depth, but we can do that in the calculated fields tool. I turn it on, I'll click save, and now you can see our status is all available. If I go into the series post and just mark the GL batch, come back to SmartList and refresh this, you will see that that GL batch now is marked. So that's a quick building of a list in SmartList Builder. For those of you who are using SmartView, that list will also be available there. You can see that under the financial we have our budget versus actual and our financial batches, and all the functionality that we have in SmartView will be available. For those of you who are not familiar with SmartView, it is an alternative option to SmartList that E1 develops. It allows you to do everything you can in SmartList and a whole lot more. If we look at this list, we do get totals on our list. I can group by the different statuses or whatever field I'd like to group by. I can do unlimited filtering in here. If I need to filter on the different batches, maybe you have a lot more than the 8 that I have, we can do a lot of filtering in there, as well as things like drag and drop, adding of fields, and all of that. If you are interested in SmartView, certainly let us know and we'll get you more information on that. So within the SmartList Builder product, we have the 3 other options that we talked about. So let's go to Excel Report Builder next. Since we already have our report in SmartList Builder, we're going to modify that one. And then we can go to Options and choose Duplicate. This way you don't have to set up the same report in all the different builders. We can duplicate it across and change it as necessary. So I'm going to choose Excel Report here, and it's going to give it the same name. You can change it if you'd like. I want to keep it the same so I know it's the same list, and I'll duplicate it. And now if I put these side by side, you can see that they're very much the same. There are some little differences because we're using SmartList versus Excel, and the functionality between those two is a little bit different, but the basic usage of the builders is going to be the same. So let's just clean up our screen a little bit, and now we can use Excel Report Builder. So the first thing you're going to notice is that we don't have a display and a default column. Excel doesn't have a columns button for us to go add columns on the fly, so you need to choose, do you want this field in your report or not? If you don't add it, it will not be available in the list. So I'm going to unmark all of these because I really don't want them all. I'm going to order them by display name and go and get those few that we had before. And now when I do this, remember we renamed some of them, so I'm looking for those renamed fields instead of the original fields we had selected, but I have those 5 selected now, as well as my calculated field is added on there. With the different columns, we could have done it in Smart List Builder as well, but they came in the order we want. We can actually reorder columns. So I can move batch ID to the top. Maybe I want the comment, then the let's put the origin there, the total, this journal entries, and then our status field. So that looks good. We'll go in that order. The other thing we have to do in an Excel report is put in a view name. Excel reports are run outside of GP. They're going to use your Windows user account. And so we create a SQL view that your Windows user would get access to be able to run that list. You're not using your GP users, you don't already have access to all the tables, so we're going to create this view to pull in the data of this setup, and that's what Excel is going to use. So to get this to Excel, I can click Publish, and now in the Publish window we have a couple options. We can do Reports Library, which is going to go to the same location as the default Excel reports that Microsoft ships, and that'll be available if you have deployed those default reports. We can go to a SharePoint site if you have a document library you want to put it in out there. Or we can just go to File, which is what I'm going to use in this scenario, and I'm just going to put it on the desktop just so we can quickly find it here. Okay, so I've created our different locations. Here is where we would grant permissions if we want to. I have it going to some default roles. We won't get into that today, but there is permissions that we assign to these reports. Not everybody's going to get the data in the report. Now if we go to our desktop, you can see we have this Excel report sitting here, and I can open it. I do have to enable the content. By default, Excel does not trust any external data coming in. You can set up trust settings so that it does do that automatically, but I haven't done that, so we'll enable the data, and now I have that report right here in Excel. So you can see we have the same columns in that order we selected. It's Excel data at this point, so I can do any charts, graphs, pivot tables, dashboards, whatever you want to create with this data, we can do that. There are totaling options in here, so I can do a total of that field if I want to, and you can see that that line turned blue. There's one totaling row that will move up and down with your data if you add that. If I save this, that formatting gets saved. So any formatting I do here, if I make this a currency field with 2 decimals, that formatting will get saved as long as I save this when I close it. The data does not get saved inside the file. It's just the formatting of the report that gets saved. Now to show you that it is refreshable right from within Excel, we're going to go back to our series post window. I'm going to unmark the GL batch, so now it's available. So you can see it still shows marked here, but if we go to data and click refresh, that changed to available because now it went and read the data out of GP again and said, oh, that's changed to available, and it changed it. I didn't have to do something like run the smart list again and export it to Excel. I did it right from within Excel. So we'll save that. Back in our Excel report builder setup, if I just pull that up again, you will see that we have the restrictions here as well. We don't have that user option on the bottom half of that window because we're not using GP users, but we do have all those restrictions. The calculations are exactly the same. We still have those available to us. Instead of the go-tos, we have drill downs. Same functionality, but we're going to use Drill Down Builder to create those here in just a minute. The options are a little bit different in that we don't have summary lists where I can't sum it up by all of the accounts or a year or anything like that. We can though turn on totals at the end of the list by default. I went and typed in the sum function to get that total. We can just check this box and it will total all of the integer values on your list already for you. And we have multi-company options. I have 3 companies in my setup, but it only published a report for one company, and that was the company I'm logged into. If I wanted to publish a separate report for each company, I can check each company here and it will give me a separate Excel report for each company. We can take it a step further and consolidate all those reports into one workbook so that I only have one Excel file, but I have a separate worksheet for each company. Or we can consolidate all the reports into a single worksheet. That'll look very similar to what we did in SmartList, where we were pulling in the budget versus actual for multiple companies. It's just going to be one big long list, and then we could add that calculated field to show us which company it comes from. I'm going to do the single workbook, and we'll see what that looks like. So we'll save that, and we're going to publish this again. Now what this is going to do is recreate a new Excel file, and if I was just publishing it to that one company again, it would actually overwrite the one I had already created. But because we're going to a multi-company option, it's going to create a different one that's multi-company. But when you publish, you have to be careful because any formatting you've already changed in your file would be overwritten. You basically get a new Excel file. So we'd want to make sure we have the data we want before we ever edit our file too much in Excel. So I have my new file. I'll open that in Excel, enable the content, and now you can see it looks very similar to what we had before, except for if you look down in the lower left, you will see that we have 3 different worksheets, one for each of my companies. So as I go through them, you can see the different data, and that totaling row has already been added. I didn't have to do that. And you can tell this isn't the one we did because it doesn't have the batch total formatted as a currency. Okay, and I don't have any data in that third company, so that's why it's reporting blank. But we have this data here, and now that we have what we want, we can again go format, we can do a pivot table, whatever we want to. But that way you get one Excel spreadsheet and you can kind of combine the data. You see it separately, but we can combine it in a report if we want to. So that is Excel Report Builder. I know it was really quick, but really 90% of the functionality is the same exact as SmartList Builder. Now I want to move on to Drill Down Builder and add a drill down that we can use in that Excel report. So we're going to go back to GP and go to Drill Down Builder, and we can create a new drill down here. What I'd like to do is just drill back to that batch entry window. So we'll just call this batch entry. Okay, and we actually have options for a form, which is any window in GP, another SmartList, so I could drill from Excel back to a SmartList if I wanted to, and if you're using E1's Extender product, you can actually drill back to Extender forms as well. We're just going to do a GP form, so we'll select forms, and now we have to select which form we want to drill back to. So we're going to select that batch entry out of the financial series. Now, if I just did that, it'll open the batch entry window, but it won't put any of the data from my Excel report in it. If you think about the go-tos in SmartList, they populate with whatever record you had highlighted. I wanted to do that same thing. So we have to create parameters here, which is kind of a storage place. What data am I going to pass back to that window? Well, the batch entry window, to get it to populate, I have to populate the batch ID and the origin. I can show you that, where we have one called PMCHK. So if I just type in PMCHK, it doesn't populate. But as soon as I select what the origin of that one is, it populates that batch in. So I need to populate both of those fields. So we're going to create a parameter for batch ID. It'll be a string. And we'll create one for the origin. And the origin is not a string. That's what it looks like on our window. But remember, we changed it from showing the 1, 2, 3 value to showing the string value. So it's actually an integer. So we're going to select integer. Now, once I get data into those two fields, I need to tell it where to take that data and put it in the window. So I'm going to do a new action, And I'm going to set the field value and run the field script. Put the data in the field and tab off of it. And we're going to do this to the batch number field with our batch ID parameter. We're going to do the same thing for origin. And there's one more we have to do on just that window. We just need to run a script on display existing record. It's got kind of a hidden function we have to run there. Most windows don't have that. This one does. So we're going to run that to get it to display. And that's all we're going to do in Drill Down Builder. Now we're going to go back to our Excel report. And we're going to add that drill down. So which column do I want this drill down to go on? You have to pick one of your columns so that it gives you that hyperlink in Excel. So we'll just put it on our batch ID. And we'll select that batch entry drill down we created. And here's those two parameters we created. Now it's saying in this report, where is the data for these values? We can use this same drill down on 3, 4, 5 different Excel report builder reports. We can put it into SmartList Builder and have it on different reports. So once we've created it, we can use it in a lot of different places. And that's why we're not mapping it to data when we set it up in Drill Down Builder. We're mapping it to the data on each individual report. So we're going to pick our fields. We'll map it to the batch ID and the origin. And now it's mapped for that specific report. We'll publish this. Go to our report again. And I'm going to make sure to close some of these windows for you so that you can kind of see it happen a little bit better in the background. Okay, so now if I hover over batch ID, you can see that it turns to a hand icon and gives me kind of what looks like a hyperlink there, or a URL. It's a Dynamics GP drill down URL. And so if I click on, let's say this PM check batch, I want to see more about that. I click on that. Excel is always going to prompt you, are you okay leaving Excel with this unknown data? Well, I trust it, it's GP, so I'll say yes. And now you can see GP opened another window here. And it actually populated the PM check and the origin of general entry and is showing me that batch. So that is what I saw here, the $78,000 batch showing up here in the batch entry. So I can drill from my Excel report back to GP and see more detail on it, the same as you have in SmartList with the go-tos. There are limitations here. I do have to be logged into GP, into the right company that data exists in, and I have to have access to whatever I'm trying to retrieve. So if I didn't have access to this batch entry window, as whoever I was logged into GP as, I would have gotten a security error and that wouldn't have worked. So it will check all of your GP authentication and make sure that that's valid before it lets you in. So that is a little bit about Drill Down Builder. The last feature I'd like to show you is Navigation List Builder. So I'm again going to duplicate that setup to Navigation List. And now we can see that setup in Navigation List Builder. Again, if I put it side by side, you can see that it's very similar again. We still have our restrictions and our users are back. Our calculations are the same. In Navigation List Builder, they're called actions instead of go-tos or drill downs. Same functionality, it's just they're called different things in the core product of SmartList, Excel reports, Navigation List, so we call them what they are in the builders as well. The main difference we have here is we have a display and a preview section in Navigation List Builder. If I pull up a navigation list like our customer list, you can see here the display section is this main middle section here where we see the customer list. The preview section is at the bottom portion here where we see a little more detail about the specific record we have highlighted. So if I highlight Astor Suites, you can see the bottom changes in the preview to show information about Astor Suites instead of Aaron Fitz Electrical. So we get to choose which fields are going to be in each of those sections. So I'm just going to order this by the display status for now, and I'm just going to uncheck some just to put some in each for us. We'll leave our calculated field in both so that we can see that happened. The other thing we can do, in that preview section, there are 3 columns. We can tell it which fields go in each column and maybe what order they should be in that column. So we get to define that look a little bit there. So we'll say OK. And now if I save this and I go to financial, there's our financial batch list. And you can see it's the same data, just a little bit different display because I chose some different fields in here. But we have the same fields, and as I go through them, our preview is changing based on those fields we put there. So those are navigation lists. Now, Navigation List Builder doesn't have any multi-company options or summary options to group the data up. Those are the main things that aren't there versus what's in SmartList Builder or Excel Report Builder. So that is a little bit about what SmartList Builder can do for you. Hopefully you saw it and can relate that back to what you might need in a SmartList, Excel report, or a navigation list there for you. A few other things I want to talk about today. First, just to talk about pricing. If you are interested in purchasing SmartList Builder, please let us know and we can get you pricing based on your location. We have several different options available on the pricing model. We also have some training available for you. We have a self-paced training which allows you to access a site where you can go through the training at your pace. It's a video you'll watch on a certain feature, and then there is a hands-on exercise for you to do in an environment that we provide. And you can go through that, do 4 sections a day, however you'd like to do that training. You can come back and retake any section you want to at any time to help refresh your memory on something. It is 1 year's access to this site or your whole account. So anyone in your office can certainly take that training and they would all have access for that 1 year. We also offer private training. That is a custom online training. You tell us what you need to learn in the builders. Maybe you're struggling with Excel Report Builder. We can go through that. Or maybe you'd like to learn it all. We can go through whatever you need to in a custom online training to meet your needs. I invite you to take a look at SmartList Builder. You can do so by going to the e1solutions.com page and going to Downloads and SmartList Builder. Here you will see the different versions of SmartList Builder available. You can select the release that is compatible with your GP release. You will see in the notes field which release it's compatible with. Generally speaking, the version number you see here will go along with the version number you're on for GP. You can download SmartList Builder and use it in Fabricam, which is the sample company that comes with GP, without registration keys. So you can set up some different lists, you can play around with it and do what you'd like in Fabricam and see how it works for you. If you do decide to purchase it, you put in a registration key. Those lists that you've built will now be available in all your companies to use if you'd like to, after granting some security. You'll also notice our manuals are here if you need those, as well as our release notes for each release. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see that we have a bunch of different templates available as well for SmartList Builder, Excel Report Builder, and Navigation List Builder. If I expand something like the purchasing series here, you'll see that we have a bunch of different templates for different reports that you can import right into SmartList Builder, and then you can use those live if you'd like to. You can use them as a sample to learn from. You can modify them, whatever you'd like to do. If you do want to use those lists, you can just import them by going under the SmartList Builder menu and choosing Import. And if you have downloaded them already, you can import from File, but if you haven't and you're on 2015 of GP or higher, you can actually import them right from the website by just selecting the product you want, the series. It'll show all the lists, and then you can import them directly from here. So thank you for joining us, and I hope we've inspired you to take a look further into SmartList Builder to expand what you have with SmartList, the Excel reports, and navigation lists, and how SmartList Builder can help you meet the needs of your business. If you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact our sales team at sales@e1solutions.com, or you can give us a call at 888-319-3663, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We also, on our site, have a chat option. If you'd like to use the questions box here that pops up, you can certainly start a chat with our sales team to ask them any questions you might have. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.